There are three major types of precipitation: the convective, orographic, and the cyclonic precipitation. Precipitation occurs as a combination of all three and not often as a purely one type of precipitation. Now, what are these types? Let us look one by one in detail. The convective precipitation, it is most common in tropical countries, like in warm countries. Why? How does it occur? Whenever the rays of the sun are incident on the land first gets heated. Okay, there is, say, suppose there is lack of vegetation, or there is lack of any infrastructure. There is simply land here. The rays of the sun will heat up the land. The land gets hot. The moist air which flows over the land, the air which is flowing over the land, it will get heated next. Correct? Then, as we know, warm air is always lighter in density than cold air. Cold air is denser, warm air is lighter. The light air will always rise above and the denser air will stay towards the ground. As the warm air will rise, it will rise and rise according to the and it will to what extent will it rise? To the point where gradually it will start losing its heat or warmth according to the dry adiabatic lapse rate. It will start cooling at 1 degree centigrade per 100 meters. This gradually it will lead for these cold air vapors to form a cloud. Then they will condense, and this area which is bounded by this type of precipitation will receive heavy intense showers like thunderstorms even, but they are short bursts of rain. Okay, for example, the afternoon rains in summer. Okay, this is an example of the convective precipitation, because convection always deals with heat. It is caused directly because of the heat of the sun and not by the geographical factors regarding the land. Okay, so this has purely to do with meteorological factors, which is convective. The next type of precipitation is orographic. Now, orographic meaning regard dealing with mountains, dealing with hills, dealing with elevations. The geography comes into picture. Whenever the warm air, say the sun is heating the topmost layers of the oceans, or the land, then the air which is flowing over that land or the ocean also will get heated. Correct? There will be a heat transfer between the land and air. This warm air now, it will rise and rise, because lighter air, warm air is always lighter, cool air is denser. Warm air has a tendency to rise above. It will rise and rise, and the wind also comes into picture here. It will push this warm air at the top much higher than it's supposed to go, because if there were no winds here, it will rise up to, say, a limited height, because it will lose its warmth or heat according to the dry adiabatic lapse rate, and it will condense and shower back again in form of a heavy shower, intense shower. But sometimes the winds are going to push our warm air much above a hill or a mountain. Now, the hill above from which it is getting pushed up, the wind, is known as the windward side, and the the region where on the downstream of that, on the other side of the hill, is known as the leeward side. Now, what happens? It will this wind pushing when it pushes our warm air to the top of a hill, or to the top, slowly it will lose its heat because of the diabatic lapse rate, and then it will cool, and suddenly it will result in condensing of those vapors to the liquid state, and precipitation will be received. Okay, precipitation will be received on the windward side, whereas the leeward side remains dry throughout the year, and it is also known for that reason the rain shadow region. Okay, so this is how the orographic precipitation occurs: heavy rain on one side, the windward side, and no rain It is extremely dry on the leeward side or the downstream side of the hill. So because of the geography coming into picture, we'll call it the orographic precipitation. The next type of precipitation is cyclonic. Now, cyclonic is very interesting type of precipitation. It is also called as frontal precipitation because usually the boundary separating the cool and the warm air parcels is known as a front. Okay, so there are two types of cyclonic precipitation: frontal and non-frontal. Now, frontal also there are two types further. One is known as a warm frontal precipitation, and another is a cool frontal precipitation, cold front precipitation. Now, warm front is what? Whenever the cold parcel is, say, stationary wedge or parcel of air exists, and warm air pushes upwards over that, then the precipitation which is received, it is spread over a larger area. Larger area, when I say, I'm talking around 300 to 500 kilometers. This is known as the warm front precipitation. Similarly, sometimes the cool air parcel is also moving upwards. It is itself in the process of losing its coolness, and warm air is also traveling upwards. Okay, this phenomenon will result in the precipitation occurring over a shorter distance, over 100 to 150 kilometers only. This is known as a cold front precipitation. Okay, why the front it comes into picture? Because as we discussed, the boundary where the cold air parcel and the warm parcel are separated is known as a front, and there is a lifting of always the warm air over the colder air. Now, depending on the stationary nature of the cold air parcel, we will further classify the frontal precipitation into cold front and the warm front precipitations. Now, the next type of cyclonic precipitation is non-frontal. Now, non-frontal precipitation occurs because of a property of wind, that always wind will flow from a high pressure region to a low pressure region, just as water flows from a high concentration to low concentration region. That is the physics or the nature of the universe. So, say there is a low pressure region here. The the air from all the high pressure regions will obviously like gravitate towards the low pressure region. Okay, and the air which was over the low pressure region, it will get pushed up. That air will get pushed up to a higher elevation, and slowly it will also come down in the form of a rain. Okay, and this type of precipitation, like the because caused by this low pressure or a barometric depression, barometric relating to atmospheric pressure, low pressure, such type of precipitation we'll call it the non-frontal precipitation. Okay, and it occurs whenever there is a low pressure caused in any region. Okay, so these are some uh, these are the types of cyclonic precipitation which occurs from the interaction usually of the warm and cold air masses. Okay, because one is warm air always lifted over the cold air parcel, and it will also cool down in the process and come down in the form of a rain, either over a long distance in in the case of warm front precipitation, or over shorter distances in cold front precipitations. So these were the types of precipitation: the convective, orographic, and the cyclonic, which we have seen.